Saw my homegirl Nikki from South Lawn lost her son, man. Our young generation is clearly lost, man. Clearly lost, man. Like, I don't even know what to say no more, man. Like, you youngsters just going around, just busting guns in crowds, kids getting killed, you know, and it's clearly the generation after us, man, that's so lost, man. You know, man, it condoning this, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like, half them young shooting them guns go home and they knees shaking at night. But they don't show it to nobody because, you know, they ain't tough then. Hey, man, come on home, man. One day it's going to be you and God. You going up or you going down.
But does this violence help? It doesn't help anything, but it lets you know they're tired. They're tired of being oppressed, being misused, being abused, being murdered at will.
Overnight, this undated video of Floyd pleading for an end to senseless shootings circulated on social media.
Come on home, man. One day it's going to be you and God.
And he cried out for help, and it's just wrong, man. It's just wrong.
As we go to air tonight, the United States is being rocked by an explosion of violence and anger. Crowds have taken over the city of Minneapolis as payback for the death of an unarmed black man at the hands of police. A state of emergency has been declared and the National Guard is now on the streets trying to seize control.
Just extraordinary scenes to witness and just so much destruction tonight.
At least one person has been shot dead in the widespread mayhem.
Pleas for calm after a night of rage. Demonstrators angry over the death of George Floyd at the hands of police, officers firing tear gas and rubber bullets, but quickly losing control.
Rage spreading nationwide. This is Los Angeles.
Oh my goodness.
A protester flung from the bonnet. Crowds race in, surrounding another patrol car.
Holy Christmas. Oh boy.
Shutting down a major freeway, demanding justice.
I simply want to be able to raise my children in peace.
The anger over the treatment of African American men by police isn't new, but it is very raw right now. Fueled by things like this, a white man confronting black businessmen in the office gym.
What office? So we have an office here and this guy came accusing us we can't be here.
What office are you in?
Don't worry about that. We don't have to tell you that.
Go ahead. The man's had his lease terminated. The actor John Boyega posted his frustrations.
A black man was just murdered in cold blood in the streets stateside again, while saying that he can't breathe. That's a continuous cycle going on, and although I don't live in the States, but I'm black.
A disturbing video has surfaced of a Jackson police officer in a confrontation with the male suspect yesterday afternoon. In this video, you can see that the officer with his hands is clearly around the neck of a shirtless male as he's being pushed up against a car. This happened near the Beauty Zone and 88-cent store on Bailey Avenue around 4:30 in the afternoon yesterday. That location is adjacent to the Jackson Mall. The officer has been placed on administrative leave.
There is news tonight after that confrontation on video igniting outrage. A woman calling 911 after an African-American man asked her to put her dog on a leash.
Amy Cooper angrily confronted the man who was bird watching in the park and had asked her to put her dog on a leash as required.
You can hear her warn him what she's going to tell police.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Amy Cooper calling police, claiming the man was threatening her life. Chris Cooper, no relation to her, obviously.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to me.
I'm taking pictures going to box.
When Christian refused to stop recording her, the video shows Amy Cooper grabbing her dog's collar, moving away, and dialing 911.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
There is an African-American man. I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park.
That Miss Cooper called the police on Mr. Cooper, even though she was the one breaking the rules, according to the mayor, adding that type of hatred has no place in New York City.
Watching George Floyd,
be killed unarmed by police. All of these incidents back to back.
Please don't tell me that he's gone.
To back.
From Eric Garner to Ahmaud Arbery, all part of a seemingly endless stream of footage revealing the violence so many have experienced, challenging the police version of events.
Don't pull it off.
Some, like this of Philando Castile, posted in real time on social media.
And the officer just shot him.
Offering a narrative of lives cut short, igniting calls for racial justice.
It's wrong, period.
These are not the images you would expect from school. A police officer responsible for keeping students safe has put one in a chokehold. The reason, the boy's friends say, was because he threw an orange at a wall.
For what they claim is a pattern of abuse targeting black students. Video of one incident shows a school resource officer putting a student in a headlock.
Suddenly, Shaulis confronts Williams, putting him in a headlock and eventually dragging him to the hallway. Principal Kevin Murray helps Officer Shaulis hold Williams down while a teen is handcuffed and tasered.
Startling dashcam video of the moments after a trooper pulls a man over for an alleged seatbelt violation.
Has your license, please?
Watch again. LeVar Jones, who's told to produce his driver's license, reaches into his car. Trooper Sean Gruber fires at least 4 shots, hitting Jones once in the hip.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
I just got my license. You think you're my license?
A Broward County deputy pepper sprays a teen. Another deputy seen swinging a punch, banging the teen's head on the street.
Meanwhile, an alliance of educational justice groups reports that across the U.S., school police have assaulted students at least 24 times in the past 2 years.
On Thursday, yet another video emerged showing a police officer slamming a teenage girl to the ground. Lawyer Benjamin Crump says the conviction of Newman Raja is a start, but doesn't happen often enough.
You never know what could happen when they walk out the door. They need to know how to defend themselves, how to stand up for themselves, how to talk for themselves. Because if I don't teach that to them, this world, this cold, cold world would take over my babies.
Twitter has put up a rule violation notice on President Trump's most recent tweets about protests in Minneapolis, saying his comments glorified violence and were against the rules. Now, the social media giant obscured the offending message on his profile with a warning.
For the first time, posted fact-check labels on a pair of the president's tweets about mail-in ballots.
Now, whether or not it's politically wise for him to do this, Donald Trump has an absolute right as an American to express what he actually thinks, even if every other person on earth disagrees with him. When they used to tell you this was a free country, and they often said that, that's what they were talking about, the freedom of speech. Well, sadly, it's become a much less free country recently. Power has become radically concentrated in far fewer hands than at any time in the past 100 years, at least. And the people who wield that power have no interest whatsoever in your right to say something they disagree with. In fact, they're delighted to silence you if you try. They're not embarrassed to admit that they do this. They don't pretend anymore. Twitter, for example, now openly purges users whose political views their executives don't like. It's bewildering if you think about it that they're allowed to do this, because like all the big tech companies, Twitter only exists, its CEO is only a billionaire, because Twitter enjoys key exemptions from federal law. Until yesterday, Twitter returned the favor by leaving the commander-in-chief's Twitter feed alone. And then Trump criticized mail-in voting. The president tweeted that mail-in ballots could be, quote, substantially fraudulent. Well, as a factual matter, that is true, and we can prove it. As we told you last night, mail-in ballots have been linked to numerous cases of election fraud. People have been criminally convicted for it, so it's really not up for debate. But this is an election year, and mail-in voting is now the central objective of the Democratic Party, and so you're not supposed to know any of that. Yesterday, Twitter placed a so-called fact check on the president's tweet. Quote, Trump falsely claimed that mail-in ballots would lead to a rigged election, Twitter announced. Fact checkers say there is no evidence that mail-in ballots are linked to voter fraud, end quote. Now again, as a factual matter, that is a lie. There's no other way to interpret it. But worse than a lie, it is a form of political censorship. So who decided to do this, to censor it? Traditionally, that role, the role of pushing back hard against censorship, was reserved for reporters. Their job was to safeguard the First Amendment, which is designed to protect the weak. Not the strong, the weak are protected by the freedom of speech. And journalists were supposed to care about the weak, about the public, their readers and viewers. And all of a sudden, it's everywhere. Throughout April and May, YouTube, part of Google, took down any video that, quote, explicitly disputes the efficacy of global or local health authority recommended guidance. If you dared to question the decrees of the politicians, some of whom are impressive and wise, many of whom are dumb and making it up as they go along, but if you criticized them, you were censored, and many were censored for doing that. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg recently explained why censorship isn't really bad. In fact, it saves lives.
If someone's spreading something that puts people at imminent risk of physical harm, then we take that down. We don't allow that on Facebook. There are also other misinformation that may not lead to imminent risk of physical harm, but still isn't the type of stuff we want to be spreading through our system.
So this month, Facebook announced that it's expanding this effort. It announced the first 20 members of its new oversight panel. That panel will help decide which ideas can be expressed in public and which ideas must be thrown into the fireplace and forgotten forever. And you can imagine who's on the panel. It's a list of political activists and aggressive opponents of free speech. Stanford law professor Pamela Karlan headlines the group. Pamela Karlan, look her up when you have a minute.
Those entrusted with upholding justice and the law instead violate the rights of the weak. Decades after the struggles of the civil rights movement, there seems no end to the deadly effects of discrimination in a divided society.